Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to part number 4 of the piano log. You know the drill, I play some scales and some pieces on piano and you guys watch me mess it up a couple of times and we all have great fun watching it. So without further ado, I don't think there's much else to be said. Let's get straight into the fun of things and start where we are normally familiar. And that's with scales. Well, here we are then, beginning with scales, and we start actually with a nice scale. We begin with a legato scale, and once again, I think the big thing with scales, I'm going to run out of things to say again. I don't care, I'm going to say it anyway. The big thing again this week was just the leap in efficiency. So I remember this was, I did 3 days when I recorded days. 3 of those days had half an hour for scales, and 1 of those days had 20 minutes, just purely because it was late. I needed sleep, and I just needed to practice, basically, because I hadn't done it for the rest of the day. It was a packed day, but I decided to give it a bash anyway. You'll see that later. But in that 20-minute session, I got through all of the scales, all of the roots, thirds apart, sixths apart, in half the time, in 10 minutes. So when I really put my mind to it, I could just about do just about everything I needed to, and still have about 5 or 10 minutes to spare, which is just an incredible leap from where I was in week 1, not really knowing where to begin. However, the messing around still hasn't stopped. We are still mucking about like an absolute Fruit Loop, so that's always good to see. I don't know, in this 4th week, really everything began to work like clockwork. So my wrists really began to start working for legatos and staccatos. The muscle memory in the fingers between the intervals for the arpeggios began to come together, dominant sevenths, etc. And all the scales were basically there, bar a couple of scales that I hadn't done for a while. But it was all there, it was all in that muscle memory, and that was so important. And I think the significant leap that's been made in just 4 weeks, the fact that in week 1, I just couldn't play a single scale without completely flopping it up like an absolute fish, to now mucking around on the piano like this, but actually just being able to play scales with as much utmost efficiency as I possibly can, which means an absolute great amount to me. The problem with doing this voiceover is that it's very, very difficult to fill 6 minutes worth of scales, roughly, when you've said basically everything that you wanted to say in the past 3 weeks of doing it. However, come to a new day, I think it's a good time to look at my wrist staccato, which is finally coming along very, very nicely. My left arm still looks a bit solid, really. I'd hope it was solid and not liquid, but there you go. But the actual movement in the wrists. And why is the audio gone good again? What's that all about? iPhones are weird. I think that's the moral of today's story already. But as I was saying, staccatos-wise, my right wrist is really working. And that's very amazing to see, because both my arms were complete logs last time. Conveniently, logs in the piano log. Who would have thought it? The absolute irony of it all. But my right wrist is actually beginning to work a lot. From this side angle here, my left wrist just looks like it's the fingers doing all the work, and it looks really rigid. My right hand is actually, and my right wrist are both working really, really well for it, which, compared to week 1, this is the end of the month of progression, I've just realised, but from that beginning of the month point to now this end of the month point, there's been such a vast improvement, and that is incredible to see. I keep saying that, but I don't really know what else to say. Another bit of advice I would give is just don't speed ahead of what your brain can do. I think that's the most important thing. Like, after you've done scales for a while, at the end of this month, I definitely, because I edit out a lot of the bits that don't go very, very well at all. But in those bits, I tend to just go that little bit too fast, and then my brain just can't keep up with what my fingers are doing. So it's just important that you keep everything nice and grounded, and keep it at a sustainable pace. Because honestly, that is the best thing you can do. And we're here at Reverb McGee. This was the 20-minute scales and pieces day, as I find that one very good, it seems. So that's a happy Karl right there. For those of you with barn owl-like hearing as well, cut your nails if you play piano. If you have long nails, cut them. It helps, trust me, because, one, it just sounds awful. The percussive sound sounds disgusting. It's too many sounds. And just overall, your fingers slip off the keys, and it's just not very good at all. This combined with incompetence, well, Hippopotamus alter egos aside, we do power on, and eventually we completely smash that 6th apart scale out of the park. Look right there. Off to the Shadow Realm it goes. Fantastic stuff. Arpeggios, once again, muscle memory was just working very, very well for me. I don't know, it's like I said, difficult to talk about because I've talked about everything in the past 3 weeks, and a bit of messing around as well, because what would it be without me messing around at least once? I really hope that you guys watching this just encapsulates the fact that putting time and effort into something means that you will improve at it significantly. Like, I hope that this really just demonstrates that to a vast degree, because week 1 I wasn't motivated at all to practice piano, like at all, because, well, it's a long story basically. Might be a video and it might not be, I don't know yet, but if there is, it'll be a lot of roasting and a lot of banter. But the whole point is that I just wasn't motivated. I wasn't in a good place mentally, or I just wasn't in the mood to do anything, basically. And that's really bad, because I love playing the piano. But this series has helped me to regain my mojo, and that is very nice to see. And of course, it's not the same as starting from not ever playing piano before to suddenly being like, wow, look at this. It's from grade 8 to just trying to improve what skills I have. But even so, I still hope that message of practice does, in fact, help. A massive treat just comes across anyway. And I would expect that, I hope. That's what I've been taught most of my life, so I'd hope that would be the case. And it won't be perfect. Like, honestly, like I said, I've edited so much out of this, and that little bit, separating out the hands, is just one little bit out of many, many bits where I get it wrong and have to regain my composure and try again. But the important thing is that, in the end, it all goes right. As long as you end it on a high note, that means your mind will be positively set on it, and then next time you come to play it, it will think, wow, this is actually quite a nice scale, / arpeggio. And in that way, hopefully, it won't be as daunting. So that's another bit of advice from your boy. Scales have been absolutely blown to smithereens, which is lovely. And for a score for this week, I'll give it a 9 out of 10. Pretty high score, I know. And I leave margin at the top purely because it's not perfect. It's never going to be. I'd have to, I think a 10 would be playing every single scale at the first time of asking absolutely perfectly. And that's not where I'm at, but that is where I hopefully aim to be, and will continue to work towards trying to be in the future. But a massive improvement on week 1, and a very good showing nonetheless. I'm very, very happy with that indeed. On to the next section then, the final section of the video, and that is pieces. 7 minutes of pieces to go, here we go. And this week was very much the same as last week, only to a much more vast degree. Picking apart moments that weren't working, slowing them down, and then speeding them back up again. And it always seemed to be the same moments rearing their head, despite me practicing them multiple times, so maybe it was just me. It probably was, actually. I'll say this now. Basically, it's the whole thing about letting your brain just keep up with what your fingers are doing. Because as soon as you race off, your brain just loses all touch with what you're doing. For me, it does anyway. And it's really heavily detrimental to practice or playing in general, because you always get caught up on the same sections as a result. So make sure you slow it down, make sure your brain understands the section and your fingers understand what they are doing. Well, not that you can talk to them, of course, but just make sure that everything is working together. And then gradually speed it back up, and I mean really gradually, if you have to. And don't ever feel like if you have to do it really gradually, that it's any more of a detriment to your practice or playing, because everyone has their own speeds of practicing, and whatever speed you're doing it at, I'm sure it will be a hell of a lot better than what anyone else is doing, because you know you more than anyone else. But for me, it's constantly a case of, I've been able to do this section fast before, so why can't I do it fast now? And that's just something that happens, unfortunately, and it's something that you just have to take one step at a time, because if you race off, kind of like what I'm doing now, instead of actually trying to break it down properly, generally it just means that you're not thinking about it as much, and that means therefore I make more mistakes, and then I have to recorrect those mistakes, and then it just slows everything down a little bit more. So just make it efficient for yourself and just take your time with what you do. Some snazzy chords in the background, but that's not what we're here to do, as funky as that sounded really. We're here to practice bits slowly. So once again, it was just the little bits. Like, at the beginning, this bit that I'm playing now always seemed to be a problem for me. I just wanted it to be all together and whatnot, rather than being all disjointed and whatever. I just try to have a really vast attention to detail, because I feel like if every single little detail is right, I've done the right job. If there's like little bits here and there that are just not in the right place or not in the right order, etc., it just does my head in, and playing it just becomes that little bit more tricky for me if I practice it wrong, and then when it comes to seeing an accent above a certain note and being like, why didn't I see that before? I should have done that before. It sounds a lot better. Who knows? That's just me. I've waffled so much I can't even remember what I said. In summary, I like to focus on details a lot and making sure everything is as I interpret it, and also as it is interpreted in the music. But either way, we are back to... You can hear the metronome in the background, hopefully. I kept fluctuating between a fast pace, constant, to try and see if I could play the whole piece like that, and then going really, really slowly. Like, almost unbearably slowly. But just to make sure that every little detail was completely in order. Because if I can't play it slow, I don't even know how I'll be able to play it fast. So just having that security blanket of, I can't play it slow, so now I can work up to it being fast, is a big help for me. This piece that I'm playing, the Haydn, has been a roller coaster in a couple of ways, I guess. I think the piece itself is really fun. Once you get it up to speed and whatever, it's just a really fun piece. It's got a lot of dynamic changes. It's got very fast bits and then contrasting with slower rhythm bits. It just keeps you, both as the player and as the listener, guessing to what is going on. And Haydn always finds a way to do that with his music. He's a very jokey guy in his music, and as much as I controversially don't rate his music, I do think that this piece is pretty clever in a majority of ways. But I think big things for me were that I just kept getting my hands muddled up on sections. And it's not a case of the piece being bad or anything like that. It's just something that I needed to sort out in my own time. And at the end of the day, it's, like I said, it's my problem. It's not Haydn's problem. He's very much not in a state to help me with that right now. Haydn aside, I think this is the 20-minute section again, yes. But the important thing with a 20-minute one is that I had to use my time so much better than I did my 30-minute time, I guess, because I wanted to fit so much more in with 10 less minutes. And it worked, actually. Just as long as I stayed focused and didn't really muck around too much, as I normally do, it went pretty damn well. So if I managed to translate that over to my half an hour little sessions for it, then that will make practice so much quicker, and it's something I still have to learn to do, because I get really bored of playing the same bits over and over again. My mind just gets frazzled, basically. And is it a case of, do I want to play classical music or pop music on the piano, or a different style like jazz? I don't know. That's what I'm still trying to figure out whilst recording this voiceover and playing this piece and whatnot. But I'll figure it out, and we go from there. And that just brings me to say, when you pick a piece, whatever instrument it may be, enjoy it. Enjoy that piece as I play scales too fast for human sanity and overbend my fingers. But regardless, like I said, make sure you enjoy the piece that you're doing, because as long as you enjoy it, you'll have that motivation to practice, and then practice will be a lot more efficient and a lot quicker, because you enjoy that piece and you have a determination to try and get it all done. Whereas if you have a piece that you don't really enjoy as much, practice just becomes that little bit more difficult, because it's just laborious. It's just a psychological thing, and it's frustrating, but like I said, brains are completely stupid at times. While all of that's been happening though, I've been plonking along in the background on the piano, and this is the last day of practice of the week, basically. I'm recording this on the Saturday I did this, which is the 23rd of November. And I completely remember, this day felt really weird. It was just, I was really tired on this day. I didn't get much sleep, purely because I was up really, really early to go to a uni open day in Southampton, which, you don't even care about my open day schedules, but you get the idea. Basically, it was really tiring. There was a lot of journeying, and I had to run on almost empty, but I went for it anyway, for both the YouTube cause and for the cause of wanting to get better at piano. And this is me just trying to speed it up and get faster and try to just master everything before I kind of put it all together as one massive, fully fledged performance. Speaking of performance, I leave you now at the end of week 4 with snippets of the completed hidden piece. I hope you enjoy. Well, there you are, ladies and gents. That concludes week 4 and possibly the finale of the piano log. I hope you all enjoyed my rendition of the hidden 4 weeks of pure practice McGee, and that was snippets of the end result. It was all in one take. If I made mistakes, they were in, and you heard me correct the trill at the end, but that was just an exception, really. If I made any mistakes, I made mistakes. I will continue to work on that in the background, definitely. It's definitely a very, very fun piece to learn, I can say that much. And this whole log has been really interesting for me. For me, it's been so interesting to see a progression from week 1 to where I am now, and it might not feel like a massive leap now, but looking back at it, I'm sure it will sink in as being a lot bigger than I think. Thank you very, very much for watching this episode of the piano log, which may not be continuing, I don't know yet. But basically, I need your feedback, basically as urgently as possible, to kind of decide where I go from here. So, leave a comment down below, whatever it may be. You like the series, you don't like it, either way, the feedback will be hugely appreciated, and I can decide where this series goes from there. If it doesn't continue, then it has been an absolute pleasure making these 4 episodes for you as a little mini-series. I hope that it shows the kind of my journey, but also helps you, if any of you play music, with your journey with practicing your musical instrument as well. Hopefully my advice helps in some way or other. If it doesn't, I'm sorry, I guess. If for some reason you haven't watched Zelda in Spanish Part 4, please go and watch it. I had absolute buckets of fun making that, and I always do with Zelda in Spanish. So just make sure, if you haven't already and you want to, go to the video, give it a watch, give it a like, show the love, all that jazz. You know the drill. And on this video, if you enjoyed the video and liked what you saw, then hit that like button. Hit it as many times as you want, just make sure it is a nice blue colour and it actually likes the video. Also, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already and hit that notification bell so you do not miss any single one of my future uploads. Can we reach 150 subscribers? That is the goal now, albeit a goal that I never thought I'd set, but I'm setting it anyway. Let's go! Until next time, guys, follow my social medias. My Twitter and Instagram are at KarlsCarsYT, and links are down in the description below. It has been a pleasure making this for you guys, and until next time, I'll see you soon.